So let's talk a little bit about reading and using JSON. So JSON is a standard data type that REST APIs use for sending data to whoever is trying to communicate with the website. So basically, if you have a computer, you have a script, it's trying to communicate with a web page to be able to pull specific information down. Using the REST API standard, the data that's going to come down is going to be JSON. As far as how you're going to interact with it, basically it is going to look like nested collections. So it's going to be essentially a nested collection of dictionaries and lists. And when they start getting really complicated, you're going to have a lot of fun for figuring out where the specific index for everything is. But basically, you're going to get this JSON value back, and all you have to do is pull out the values for specific indexes to get the information that you care about. So here's a very simple script to give you an idea of how you're able to pull out specific values from JSON. So I showed you before, there's an API called ip-api.com/JSON, and what this does is it gets your external IP address and then it checks that against a database to see what geolocation information it has about that particular IP address. So what your ISP is, the city that IP address is supposed to be in, the country the ISP is supposed to be in, the latitude, the longitude, a whole bunch of interesting information, right? And so basically, if we take a look at this, we're going to import the request module, as we've done before. Response is going to equal requests.get, and then this is where we plug in the endpoint for the REST API call. So ip-api.com/JSON. This is going to automatically get what our external IP address is, check that against their database, and provide a response back. Now the response that's going to come back, it's going to be as an object. We need it to be formatted as JSON. I prefer, basically when I'm making these calls, to do the .json or .text up here. So .text would bring all this back as a string value. It all comes back as text, but it's not indexed, right? If you want it to be JSON, so you actually can pull out of specific indexes, you do .json, and so all this is going to come back as a JSON response. We're going to print out that response, so we're going to see all the information out on the screen, and then I want to pull out specific values. So we're going to print out response, square bracket, quotation mark, city. So I want to know the city for this IP address, and they're going to do print response ISP for this particular call that we're going to be making, right? And so you could use this to dump information into your database or use it as a security check, that type of thing. So if we go and we run this script, this up here, right, this is all of the information about my external IP address, country code, region name, latitude, longitude, time zone, org, a whole bunch of other stuff. And then if we take a look down here, again, when I print it out for the index, we can see it prints out for Asheville and it prints out for Charter Communication. And so this is how you're able to pull out specific information from a JSON response that comes back. So again, I have lat and I have lon up there. So let's say I wanted just simply lat and lon. So let's say I'm creating an app that's going to check things like weather forecasts. So many times with weather forecasts, you need the latitude and longitude. So instead of city and whatever else, I'm going to pull out latitude and longitude. Now when I run this, we can see at the bottom, it then gives us latitude and it gives us longitude here. So it basically just simply gives us any of these values. And so when you're looking at this, this is basically going to be a dictionary, right? You're going to interact with it as if it's a dictionary. So status is success. Country is United States, country code is US, region is NC, region name. And so all you would do is you would figure out what named key that you care about, and that's what you would call. So if I want zip code, ZIP, I would then go here and I would put ZIP, and that would give me the zip code. So that's the basic idea here. So now let's give you an example of basically what happens if you're getting multiple records back. Now this, to be clear, this is probably going to be very confusing and you might not fully grasp what the hell is going on, and that's okay. Just listen to me today and hopefully this will make more sense a little bit down the pike. Again, one of the issues that you're going to run into in the technology world when you're trying to learn things is sometimes your brain just doesn't understand. You just gotta give it a second. So anyways, we're gonna be making a REST API call to a REST API called REST countries. Now this is a really cool REST API call. It's completely free and it gives you a lot of information about the different countries out there. One of the things that you can ask is basically what countries speak a specific language, right? So in here, I'm putting Spanish and I'm saying what countries speak Spanish. So what's gonna happen is it's gonna go through, it's gonna pull all of the records for the countries that speak Spanish, and then it's going to provide that back as a JSON value. The issue is yeah, that's what, this is what the JSON value looks like. It's gonna be okay. Don't hyperventilate. Again, you may not fully grasp how to do this today, but you will learn it in the future. Again, we're gonna have a class on how to prettify that, so it makes it a little bit easier to understand. But basically what's gonna happen is you're gonna get bit back, this is a response, and within this are going to be records for countries. So every country that speaks Spanish will be a record, and it's gonna have a whole bunch of different information. It's gonna have a common name for the country, the official name for the country, it's going to have a whole bunch of different stuff in here. And basically what we want to do with this particular example is simply pull out the country name for each country that speaks Spanish or whatever other language. So we're going to do this. We're going to do the requests.get. We're going to go here and we're going to turn it into JSON. Make sure you turn it into that JSON value. We're then going to print the mess on the screen just so you can see what a mess it is. Then what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to pull that information that's actually useful for us. So we're going to say for country in response, right? So when we get this response back, there's a whole bunch of different records here. I don't know if you can see this up here, but this is actually a square bracket, right? So a square bracket denotes a list, right? So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the indexes. So basically when you take a look at this, basically there's one record and then the next record and the next record and the next record. So first country, Colombia, is at index 0. The next country is something else at index 1, index 2, so on and so forth. So basically we're going to go through there. We're going to say for country in response. So again, 0. We're going to go to country name. We're going to go to country name. So name, see this is a squiggly bracket, so that's like a dictionary. And then we want the common name. So for every record, we want to go to name, common, to get what the common name is, which is like that for Colombia there. And then we want to print that out on the screen. If we go and we run this then, what we're going to see is, again, we get this mess. So this is the mess down here that we get when we're just getting the full response. But then when we go through and we actually do the for loop here, we can pull out just the countries that speak Spanish. So we have Colombia, Honduras, Guam, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Uruguay, Equatorial Guinea, Paraguay, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and Mexico. So this is how we're able to loop through a JSON of data set that comes back to be able to pull out the specific information that we care about. Again, as we go through these classes, this will make more sense, but this is the idea. Again, basically we're looking at essentially nested collections. You have lists and you have dictionaries that are nested within each other. And so basically what you're doing is you're either looping through or you're finding the specific index that you care about in order to get the information that you're looking for. So again, please don't have a nervous breakdown. I swear this will make sense at least some point in the future. I'm gonna tell you a little secret I probably shouldn't tell you right now, but ChatGPT is amazing at figuring out things like indexes. Again, one of the important things to understand is as a technology professional, your boss really doesn't care most of the time how you solve a problem as long as you solve it legally. So if you get this nasty JSON response back from a REST API and you literally have no idea how to parse it, you know what data you're looking for, you just don't know how to get to it, one of the things that you can do is you can say, what is the JSON index for and then paste in the entire JSON response, and ChatGPT will most likely be able to give you what it is that you're looking for. And so that's just a little trick of the trade out there. Again, when I'm parsing very large, complicated JSON returns, honestly, what I'm doing is I'm grabbing a cup of coffee and I keep plugging in indexes until I get what I'm looking for. Because you're like, okay, so that's a 0, and that's a city, and that's a this, and that, and then it like fails out. So you go, okay, well maybe it's not this, maybe swap this around. And you spend like 5 or 10 minutes figuring out exactly how to get that value out of the JSON response, and then you make sure it works perfectly, and you go on to the next thing. It is important to understand one of the things with the REST API standards is the idea that this is supposed to be a stable type of data return that's coming back. You are not supposed to have to reinvent the wheel every day or every week or even every year on this. Basically, when they design their API system, they're supposed to have a standard API that basically JSON return, and that's the return that you should be getting essentially until they come out with literally the next version of their API where they might change things. So again, it may be a little bit frustrating to figure out how to get JSON to work for you, but once it does, it should be stable for a long time. And beyond that, one of the next classes that we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to quote-unquote prettify JSON, and basically what that does is it formats the JSON in a way that's a lot easier to read to hopefully help you be able to figure out how to find these indexes.